The late autumn sun, a tarnished sovereign in the vast, indifferent London sky, cast elongated spectral shadows that stretched and distorted across the gleaming futuristic expanse of the Millennium Dome. 70,000 souls, a roaring, exultant river of humanity, pulsed through its arteries, their collective breath misting in the crisp, damp air. A cocktail of diesel fumes, fried onions from 100 vendor stalls, and the faint metallic tang of the nearby Thames. This was no mere sporting contest, no ordinary Saturday fixture. This was the FA Cup final, the sacred culmination of a brutally demanding season, a gladiatorial contest pitting London's cherished Northwood Rangers, the pride of the working-class boroughs against their fiercely determined Mancunian rivals, the globally renowned Red Devils. It was a clash of titans, a battle for bragging rights that resonated through pubs and council estates across the nation. Amidst this meticulously orchestrated bedlam, Police Constable Alistair Finch, the collar of his uniform feeling unusually tight, adjusted the fit of his stab vest, a familiar ritual that did little to ease the low thrum of anticipatory adrenaline coursing through his veins. His gaze a calm blue, sharpened by years of navigating the unpredictable currents of London street life, swept methodically across the surging tide of faces. A mosaic of exhilaration, anxiety, and aggressive camaraderie. He cataloged potential flashpoints, noted the over-exuberant body language of certain groups, the telltale signs of too much pre-match lubrication. He wasn't just looking, he was assessing, dissecting, predicting. At his side, Valor, a magnificent Alsatian of impeccable lineage, all sleek black and rich tan fur. His noble head held high ears perpetually pricked like sentient radar dishes, and eyes alight with an almost unnerving wolf-like intelligence, maintained a flawless, unwavering heel position. He was an island of preternatural canine composure in the overwhelming sensory deluge of the stadium. His stillness, a counterpoint to the human frenzy, the cacophony of cheers, jeers, air horns, and distant sirens seemed to wash over him, acknowledged but dismissed. Another slow sweep of the South Concourse to Sector Gamma, then we'll double-check the integrity of the dressing room, lockdown protocols. Alistair murmured into his shoulder radio, his voice a low baritone carefully modulated to project calm authority, despite the thrum of the crowd that vibrated through the very concrete beneath his boots. A crackled, tinny acknowledgement barely discernible above the rising crescendo of pre-match anthems returned from the Central Command dispatcher. He permitted himself a fleeting glance downwards at Valor, the ghost of a smile, tight and professional, touching the corners of his lips. Ready to earn your keep, then, partner. Show these city folk what a proper copper's dog can do. Valor's response was not a bark, nor even a whine, but a subtle, almost imperceptible shift of weight onto the balls of his powerful paws, a minute tightening of the coiled muscles in his haunches, an affirmation of readiness, more eloquent and reassuring to Alistair than any human reassurance. Alistair had been a copper for 15 years, the last 4 with Valor. He'd grown up in Lewisham, a stone's throw from Northwood's old, now demolished ground, a place of crumbling terraces and fervent, profane worship. His father, a dock worker with hands like gnarled oak, had taken him to his first match when he was 6. The roar of the crowd, the smell of cheap pies and acrid cigarette smoke, the visceral communal passion, it had imprinted itself on him. He'd wanted to be a footballer then, like every other lad, but life, as it often does, had other plans. A knee injury in his late teens playing for a local semi-pro side had put paid to that dream. The police force had been a pragmatic second choice, a way to serve to find structure to still be part of the city's beating heart. He'd started on the beat pounding the pavements of Brixton, then moved to a tactical support group dealing with public order. Riots, protests, the sharp end of societal discontent. He was good at it, unflappable, but something had been missing. Officer Finch, a resonant, gravelly voice accustomed to projecting command across noisy parade grounds and chaotic incident scenes, Called from behind them, Alistair turned a reflexive, almost imperceptible straightening of his spine to see Chief Inspector Davies striding towards them. Davies, a man whose neatly trimmed, silver-streaked hair and air of innate, unshakable authority, commanded immediate respect. Even deference from the most seasoned, cynical officers acknowledged the cursory salutes of passing private security personnel with a curt, almost regal nod. His polished shoes gleamed under the harsh halogen lights of the concourse. Everything secure thus far, Finch. No early signs of trouble from the Mancunian contingent. The chief inspector's voice was sharp, his eyes like chips of granite missing nothing. "Yes, sir," Alistair replied, his tone respectful, but retaining a core of self-assurance. Valor, sensing the rank and the shift in Alistair's posture, remained perfectly still. A statue of canine discipline, though Alistair could feel the faint tremor of contained energy through the leash. "Valor and I have completed 3 full perimeter sweeps, including all designated sterile zones and emergency access points. We're proceeding to the pitch level now for a final inspection of the technical areas and team benches before the players arrive for their official warm-up." Davies nodded, his gaze shifting from Alistair to Valor, a flicker of something akin to grudging admiration, perhaps even a touch of warmth, momentarily softening the stern lines of his face. "Still our department's not-so-secret weapon, I perceive." The chief inspector's confidence was not born of hyperbole. Only the previous month, a week before Bonfire Night, Valor's extraordinary olfactory acuity had pinpointed a cunningly concealed and sophisticated incendiary explosive device embedded within the archaic ventilation system of a newly refurbished historic city of London, Guildhall, scheduled for a royal visit, a find that had eluded the department's other more specialized explosives detection canine units and the very latest in state-of-the-art portable detection equipment. The subsequent highly classified investigation had led to the swift, silent arrest of a small, well-funded domestic terror cell. Averting a catastrophe that would have sent shockwaves through the nation, Valor's picture, though not his name, had been circulated internally with a commendation, a source of quiet pride for Alistair Davies' new talent when he saw it in both man and beast. As Davies moved on his entourage of aides and junior officers, struggling to keep pace with his surprisingly brisk stride, Alistair and Valor continued their methodical progress toward the player tunnel. They navigated the labyrinthine backstage corridors, a confusing warren of concrete passages, exposed pipework, and color-coded utility doors with a practiced, almost symbiotic efficiency. The air here was cooler, carrying the scent of industrial cleaning fluids, stale beer, and the faint, nervous sweat of countless performers and athletes who had trod these same paths. The corporate hospitality boxes, those glass-fronted temples of champagne prawn sandwiches and transactional bonhomie, would be rapidly filling, now their occupants insulated from the raw passion of the terraces. The roar of the crowd, still a distant, multi-headed beast, would soon swell to a deafening crescendo as the teams emerged for their pre-match rituals, the modern-day gladiators entering their arena. As Alistair led Valor through the echoing concrete passages, his thoughts unbidden drifted back, as they often did in moments of quiet routine before the storm of an operation, to their first fateful encounter. It had been 4 long years prior, on a bleak, windswept Tuesday afternoon at the Metropolitan Police's sprawling K9 training establishment in Keston, Kent. He'd been a uniformed constable, then recently transferred from a noisy, relentless Hackney borough, eager for a new challenge, a different kind of policing, yet riddled with a quiet, gnawing uncertainty about his suitability for the elite dog support unit. His previous informal mentor, a gruff, experienced, old-school sergeant named Miller, a man whose cynicism was matched only by his profound street wisdom, had recently taken early retirement, felled by a bad back and an even worse temper. Miller's departure had left a void, a sense of professional drift Alistair wasn't sure how to navigate. He'd felt the need for a partner, a constant. The training sergeant, a wiry, sun-weathered man named Jennings, with a voice like gravel, gargled with Brasso, and eyes that seemed to x-ray your very soul, had paraded 5 highly pedigreed Alsatians that day. Each was an exceptional, magnificent specimen of the breed, their pedigrees gleaming with German champions, their training records impeccable, their potential boundless. But when Valor, then known only by his breeding kennel designation, Zeus von Adelberg, had padded with quiet dignity into the chilly, echoing assessment room, something profound, almost tangible, had shifted in the atmosphere. While the other dogs had barked with nervous excitement, sniffed inquisitively at the unfamiliar surroundings, or sought immediate boisterous engagement with the assembled handlers, Valor had simply sat, his amber eyes startlingly intelligent. Unnervingly direct, had studied each prospective handler in turn with a calm, appraising gravity that seemed almost preternatural, disconcertingly human. This one's different. Sergeant Jennings had conceded, a rare, almost imperceptible note of grudging deference softening his usually brusque, no-nonsense tone. Topped his class in every bloody discipline: scent detection, narcotics, explosives, tracking person, search the lot textbook. But he's particular choosy about his handlers. Sent 3 experienced officers packing already. Broke one's confidence, they say. Doesn't suffer fools. This one got a mind of his own. Maher Alistair remembered the moment vividly, the way the low winter sun had slanted through the high, grimy windows of the training hall, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. He remembered kneeling slowly, deliberately, to meet Valor at his own eye level. The usual clamor and nervous chatter of the training room fading into a respectful, anticipatory hush as man and dog regarded one another across the small intervening space. "Hello there, Zeus," he'd said softly, his voice barely a murmur, extending a hand. Palm open, fingers relaxed, a gesture of invitation, not demand. "Think we might make a go of it, you and I. Think we could learn to understand each other." To the collective, palpable astonishment of everyone present, including the deeply cynical Sergeant Jennings, Valor had risen with unhurried grace, walked directly, purposefully to Alistair, bypassing 2 other hopeful handlers, and pressed his warm, solid body firmly against Alistair's leg. He'd emitted a low, contented sigh, a rumble that seemed to vibrate from the very core of his being, and then quite deliberately he'd nudged Alistair's offered hand with his wet nose. The selection, it was clear to all, had been made not by the Metropolitan Police's rigorous assessment protocols, but by Valor himself. Their unique, unspoken bond, a covenant of mutual respect and intuitive understanding, had been forged in that single transformative instant. Alistair often thought that Valor had chosen him, not the other way around. Their first significant career-defining case had come a mere 6 months after their official certification, a baptism of fire that had tested their nascent partnership to its limits. Responding to what had initially appeared to be a routine low-priority call, a report of vaguely suspicious activity by a nervous night watchman at a sprawling, poorly lit self-storage facility on the bleak, rain-swept industrial outskirts of Dagenham, Valor had confounded all expectations and indeed Alistair's own initial assessment. He'd systematically bypassed the obviously disturbed storage units, the ones with crudely picked locks and hastily discarded telltale packaging strewn nearby. The targets Alistair and the accompanying uniformed officers had naturally focused on. Instead, Valor had fixated with an unwavering, almost obsessive intensity on a nondescript mud-splattered white delivery van. It was parked innocuously, almost invisibly, at the far darkened end of the compound, half hidden behind a stack of rusting skips. Its presence was unremarkable, its paperwork, when cursorily checked, seemingly in order, listing its contents as assorted catering supplies. Yet Valor's persistent, almost frantic alerting, a complex ballet of barks, whines, and body language that Alistair was only just beginning to fully comprehend, his stubborn refusal to be drawn away from the van, had prompted Alistair to make a difficult, career-risking call to override the initial dismissive assessment of his human colleagues, including a skeptical supervising sergeant. A thorough, painstaking search of the van initially met with unconcealed skepticism and muttered complaints about wasted overtime, had eventually revealed an astonishingly sophisticated, professionally concealed shipment of military-grade automatic firearms and several crates of ammunition hidden within ingeniously designed false compartments, welded seamlessly into the van's reinforced chassis. The weapons, it was later determined, were destined for the capital's increasingly violent, well-armed street gangs. That single case had earned them official commendations, certainly, and a grudging respect from the more traditional elements of the force. But more profoundly, more importantly for Alistair, it had irrevocably cemented his absolute, unshakable, almost spiritual faith in Valor's preternatural instincts. Time and time again in the years that followed, when Valor indicated with that unique, undeniable certainty that something was amiss, he was proven devastatingly, unequivocally, right, often in direct defiance of all human logic, visible evidence, or technological probability. His nose was not merely a tool. It was a finely tuned, almost mystical instrument capable of dissecting the complex, invisible, olfactory landscape of their shared world, with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. The first wave of Northwood Rangers. Players, a vibrant kaleidoscope of blue and white club tracksuits and expressions of intense, focused concentration, now emerged from the mouth of the tunnel. Their arrival was heralded by a sudden percussive smattering of cheers and shouts from the early arrivals, already populating the stands nearest the tunnel. The rhythmic, almost metallic click-clack of their expensive football studs on the polished concrete floor of the tunnel gave way to the softer, more purposeful thud as they stepped onto the hallowed, immaculately manicured turf of the Millennium Dome. Kit managers, harassed and perspiring, followed closely in their wake, pushing heavily laden wheeled skips. These skips were filled with an eclectic assortment of training cones in fluorescent colors, medical bags brimming with an arsenal of freeze sprays, bandages and brightly colored kinesiology tape, and most crucially for the unfolding drama, the official pristine match balls. Each one a perfect sphere of cutting-edge sporting technology. Valor, who had been conducting a final, meticulous, almost ritualistic sweep of the home team's dugout area, his sensitive black nose methodically investigating every shadowed nook and unexplored cranny, every discarded energy gel wrapper, suddenly, almost imperceptibly, went rigid. His powerful athletic posture, moments before one of relaxed, almost casual professionalism, transformed in a single electrifying heartbeat into one of heightened predatory awareness. It was a change so fractional, so nuanced. A mere flicker in the amber depths of his eyes, a subtle shift in the carriage of his head, that only Alistair, his senses preternaturally attuned to every minute flicker of his partner's complex being, would have registered it. "What is it, boy? What do you smell?" Alistair murmured, his voice a low, reassuring caress, his hand instinctively, almost unconsciously moving to rest lightly on Valor's sturdy harness. Feeling the sudden tension in the muscles beneath the thick fur, Valor, without breaking his intense, unwavering focus, took two deliberate, measured, almost cat-like steps toward the nearest cart of footballs. His nostrils flared, visibly working with a frantic, silent intensity, analyzing an invisible, complex tapestry of sense that lay far beyond the limited, crude perception of any human. Alistair followed his outward demeanor, studiously casual, a carefully constructed mask of routine normalcy, concealing the sudden cold knot of unease that had begun to tighten in the pit of his stomach. He kept a discreet, peripheral watch on his partner. The shepherd's expressive ears, usually mobile and responsive to every sound, were now locked rigidly forward, like twin radar dishes homing in on an unseen, unheard target. His entire body language, a subtle, intricate lexicon that Alistair had spent 4 intensive years learning to decipher, shifted from standard curious investigation to unmistakable profound concern, Everything quite all right there? Officer inquired one of the senior stadium security supervisors, a portly, florid-faced man named Henderson, whose ill-fitting uniform seemed to strain at every seam, and whose primary qualification for the role appeared to be an ability to shout loudly and officiously, was responsible for liaising with the police during these high-profile, often volatile events. He had a well-earned reputation amongst the regular police units for being overly officious, easily flustered, and prone to prioritizing stadium schedules over genuine security concerns. Just running a final olfactory check, Mr. Henderson, standard procedure. Alistair replied, his voice deliberately even and unremarkable as he watched with a growing sense of internal disquiet. The team's kit manager began to unload the balls from the cart, tossing them with casual indifference onto the vibrant green pitch for the players' impending warm-up drills. When the kit man, a young lad with headphones clamped over his ears, unzipped the large canvas holdall containing the primary set of match balls, Valor's already intense reaction escalated significantly. His powerful back stiffened perceptibly, the thick fur along his spine seeming to bristle, and his breathing pattern altered dramatically, becoming shorter, shallower, almost panting. As the pristine, gleaming FIFA-approved practice balls were scattered like oversized pearls across the immaculate turf, Valor began to track one specific ball, just one out of the 24 or so, with an unnerving, almost disturbing laser-like focus. His usual, disciplined, almost regal controlled demeanor gave way to a more insistent, agitated, and urgent body language, the canine equivalent of a man trying desperately, frantically, to articulate a clear and present warning that he couldn't quite put into human words. Probably just the new leather smell, or perhaps the adhesive they use in the panel bonding. Henderson suggested with a dismissive, impatient wave of his pudgy hand. He was already turning his considerable attention to a perceived minor infraction by a group of overly enthusiastic young fans attempting to drape a large banner over a restricted railing near the perimeter fence. These Special Cup final balls, you know, they're fresh from the factory, a special commemorative batch, I reckon top-of-the-line stuff. Your dog's probably just picking up on the fancy new polymers or the unique scent of the ink on the logos or whatever exotic materials they use in them these days. Sensitive noses, these animals. Alistair offered a polite, entirely non-committal nod, a gesture he knew Henderson wouldn't scrutinize, but a tiny, persistent seed of deep disquiet had not only taken root in his mind, but was already beginning to sprout its tendrils, coiling around his professional composure. The balls might indeed be new, their complex scent profiles potentially unfamiliar, even to a dog with Valor's experience. But Valor had been exposed to literally thousands of pieces of soccer equipment, balls, boots, kits, training aids. Hundreds, if not thousands of times during their routine patrols of professional stadiums, amateur training grounds, public parks, and even school sports days. He'd never in all their years together displayed even a flicker of more than passing cursory interest before. This was different. This was specific. This was pointed. This felt important. Valor Heel. Alistair commanded, his voice soft, but infused with an undeniable firmness that Valor instantly recognized and respected. He decided to observe for a few moments longer to gather more concrete, undeniable information before formally escalating the situation and inviting Henderson's inevitable bureaucratic ire. The shepherd complied, but with a visible, almost painful reluctance, his intelligent amber eyes still resolutely, unnervingly fixed on the singular ball, now being expertly casually passed between the rapidly warming up midfielders of Northwood Rangers. Officer Finch, his police radio crackled abruptly to life, the sharp, clipped voice of the dispatcher cutting through the pervasive stadium noise with unwelcome urgency. Status report required South Concourse. Sector Gamma crowd density is increasing. All clear and appears secure on pitch level at present. Alistair responded the words almost automatic, a standard ingrained reply that felt hollow. almost dishonest even as he uttered them into his microphone. A nagging, insidious, deeply unwelcome doubt had begun to gnaw relentlessly at the carefully constructed edges of his professional composure. Was he overlooking something critical? Was his own human fallibility? His reliance on sight and sound blinding him to something Valor, with his infinitely more sophisticated senses, could perceive as clear as day? Was this one of those pivotal, career-defining moments where unwavering instinct had to battle against entrenched protocol and the weight of expectation? When Valor suddenly emitted a low guttural, almost silent whine, a sound that vibrated deep in his chest, a sound he reserved exclusively for moments of extreme, undeniable agitation or profound distress, a sound Alistair had heard perhaps fewer than half a dozen times in their entire 4-year partnership. The agonizing internal decision was irrevocably made for him. He turned to Henderson, who was now engaged in a loud theatrical argument with a junior steward over the precise placement of a portable advertising hoarding. Supervisor Henderson, my K9, is showing persistent, consistent, and highly unusual interest in one of the specific match balls currently in use. I respectfully request permission to take a closer look, sir, and to have the ball temporarily removed from play for closer examination. Henderson interrupted mid-flow, turned his already florid face flushing an even deeper shade of crimson. He frowned, his considerable jowls quivering with indignation, as he ostentatiously consulted his oversized, multifunctional wristwatch with an air of exaggerated put-upon importance. We are precisely 30 minutes from the official kickoff. Finch 30 minutes. The commissioner himself, bloody network executives from 3 continents, even a bloody minor royal, and his entourage are already comfortably ensconced in their luxurious boxes, getting decidedly antsy about the rigidly enforced television schedule. Millions are watching this live globally. Unless you are absolutely, unequivocally certain beyond any shadow of a doubt that there is a substantive, credible, and imminent threat to public safety, the unspoken pressure, the clearly implied, potentially devastating consequences of a high-profile false alarm at an event of this national and international magnitude hung heavy, almost palpably, in the air between them. Such catastrophic mistakes were not merely career-stifling. They were often career-ending. Alistair knew of officers who had never recovered from lesser errors of judgment. "It's probably nothing of consequence, sir." Alistair conceded, the words tasting like bitter ash and professional compromise in his mouth as soon as they were spoken. The internal conflict, the war between his gut instinct and his conditioned deference to rank, was immense, almost physically painful. "Right then, we'll endeavor to keep an eye on things, Finch, as best we can amidst the organized chaos," Henderson said dismissively, his attention already drifting, his gaze sweeping the stands with an air of self-importance. He then turned to bellow with renewed vigor at a hapless television cameraman who had inadvertently strayed a few inches too close to the sacred white line of the pitch. The stadium, a vast, seething cauldron of human emotion, suddenly erupted in a deafening, primal, almost visceral roar as both teams, Northwood Rangers in their iconic royal blue and white striped home kit, and the formidable Red Devils in their world-famous, intimidating crimson, emerged simultaneously from the depths of the player tunnel for the official ceremonial commencement of the match. The very air seemed to crackle with anticipation and partisan fervor. The referee, a stern-faced, experienced official named Grantham, a man with an established reputation for no-nonsense officiating and an air of grim impartial authority, approached the ball bag which had been reverently placed by the 4th official. He selected the primary game ball, the very same one Alistair noted with a sudden sickening surge of cold, visceral apprehension that chilled it to the bone, that had been the unwavering object of Valor's intense, inexplicable scrutiny during the player's warm-up. The instant that particular seemingly innocuous sphere was placed with ceremonial precision on the pristine white center spot, Valor's entire magnificent body tensed anew, every muscle coiled, every nerve ending seemingly alight. His finely tuned ears, like sensitive antennae, locked rigidly onto its precise position, and a low, insistent, deeply troubled whine, a sound of profound, almost unbearable canine disquiet, began to build ominously deep in the cavity of his broad chest. "Easy now, boy, easy does it." Alistair murmured, his voice a low, steady current of reassurance in the maelstrom of noise. His hand rested with what he hoped was a calming weight on Valor's sturdy harness, a subtle pressure intended to both soothe his agitation and reinforce Alistair's command. With his other hand, he reached with a sense of grim inevitability for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Finch, K9 Unit. Be advised, my K9 partner Valor is continuing to exhibit a strong, consistent, and increasingly urgent alert to the primary game ball currently on the field of play. I am formally requesting an additional independent K unit to attend my location immediately to confirm this alert. Over. Finch, this is Supervisor Henderson on Tactical Channel." The supervisor's irritated, exasperated voice cut in sharply, overriding the dispatcher with an audible click. "Negative on that request, Officer Finch. I have already made my position on this matter abundantly clear. We are not, I repeat, not under any circumstances interrupting a nationally televised FA Cup final with a global viewing audience currently estimated in the hundreds of millions without concrete, tangible, irrefutable evidence of an immediate and critical threat. A dog barking at a bloody football, however well-trained, simply does not meet that threshold. Is that understood?" Alistair felt a hot, almost uncontrollable surge of profound frustration, a feeling he quickly forcefully suppressed, years of professional discipline kicking in. He watched his stomach churning with a toxic cocktail of anger and anxiety as the ball was passed with breathtaking skill and deceptive precision from player to player across the immaculate emerald green turf. Valor's unwavering attention never once faltered his noble head, moving with an almost mechanical metronomic precision, tracking the complex, unpredictable trajectory of the suspicious sphere. His body language, to Alistair's experienced eye, was growing increasingly, alarmingly urgent, his distress becoming almost palpable, a silent, desperate scream only Alistair could truly hear. "With all due respect, Supervisor Henderson, sir." Alistair persisted, his voice tight but meticulously controlled. "Police dog Valor has an unblemished, exemplary 4-year operational detection record. He has never been wrong. Not once he has located contraband and hazardous materials that have eluded all other forms of detection. I have been personally responsible for handling K9 security deployments for this very stadium, and others like it, for the best part of 15 years. Henderson cut him off abruptly, his voice now sharp with unconcealed impatience and rising anger. "Unless that ball spontaneously combusts on live television, Finch, or starts leaking some kind of identifiable hazardous substance, we are not stopping this match. Do I make myself absolutely, unequivocally clear? Constable." The use of his rank was a clear, deliberate power play. Alistair took a deep, steadying breath, forcing himself to remain calm. He keyed his radio to a different, more discreet, encrypted channel, one reserved for direct inter-unit communication between specialist officers. "Officer Lena Petrova, K9 Unit. This is Finch. Do you copy? Over." After a brief, agonizing pause filled only with the faint, almost subliminal crackle of background static, Lena's calm, familiar, reassuring voice came through his earpiece. "Copy that, Alistair, loud and clear. What's going on? You sound more stressed than usual, and that's saying something for a cup final. Lena, can you and Blitz casually, and I mean casually, make your way down to Sector 114? I'm currently positioned by the home team dugout near the fourth official. I desperately need a second pair of experienced eyes, or rather a second highly trained nose, on something that's seriously bothering Valor, and by extension me." As the first half of the tense, hard-fought match unfolded, a largely attritional tactical battle with few clear-cut goal-scoring chances, and a rising undercurrent of niggly fouls. Alistair, while maintaining a facade of vigilant observation of the crowd, noticed something else. Something subtle, yet profoundly unsettling, that sent a fresh, sharp prickle of deeply intuitive unease tracing a cold path down his spine. A stadium maintenance worker clad in the standard-issue, unremarkable navy blue overalls and high-vis vest was displaying an unusual, almost unnatural degree of focused attention to the game. He wasn't watching the intricate ebb and flow of play, the complex strategic positioning of the players, the individual duels as a genuine football fan, or even a casual observer inevitably would have. Instead, his gaze, intense, unwavering, and strangely predatory, was focused almost exclusively, obsessively on the ball itself. The man's head, Alistair observed with mounting suspicion, tracked the exact same path, the same erratic trajectory as Valor's following the suspicious sphere, with an unnatural, almost obsessive, deeply unsettling concentration. He was too still, too quiet, too focused, a discordant note in the symphony of movement and noise from the other ground staff and stewards. He seemed utterly oblivious to the roaring crowd, the drama on the pitch, everything but the ball. Police Constable Lena Petrova, a highly respected K-9 handler known for her calm, competence and sharp intellect, materialized almost silently at his side. Her own formidable K-9 partner, Blitz, a powerfully built, athletically lean Belgian Malinois, with intelligent, piercingly watchful eyes healing with disciplined, almost military precision beside her. Blitz, unlike the more stoic Valor, radiated a barely contained, vibrant energy, a coiled spring of explosive speed and focused tenacity, a different kind of K-9 asset to Valor's methodical, almost contemplative precision. "What have we got then, Alistair?" she asked quietly, her perceptive gaze sweeping the immediate scene, taking in Alistair's unusually tense posture, the rigid set of his jaw, and Valor's unwavering, almost hypnotic focus on the football. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Valor's been consistently and aggressively alerting to that specific game ball, that one there, see it, ever since the pre-match warm-up. Alistair explained, his voice low and urgent, gesturing discreetly with a slight, almost imperceptible inclination of his head. The one with the almost invisible tiny scuff mark just above the manufacturer's primary logo panel. "And see that supposed maintenance chap, the one over by the fourth official's electronic gantry, pretending to adjust that cable? He's paying far, far too much detailed attention to it. For my liking, his focus is unnatural." Lena, a former intelligence analyst before transferring to the dog support unit, observed the unfolding situation for a long, thoughtful moment, her expression serious, her mind clearly processing the implications. Blitz, sensing the subtle but significant shift in his handler's demeanor, the increased alertness in her posture also seemed to heighten his own awareness. His head raised, his nostrils twitching. "So Henderson shot you down completely then? Typical." She surmised, her tone dry. Alistair nodded grimly, a muscle twitching in his cheek. "Doesn't want to risk the disruption, the inevitable media circus, the bad press for the stadium. Said it was probably just new ball smell or some other nonsense. Basically told me to stand down unless it exploded." As they spoke, a crunching, borderline reckless tackle near the halfway line sent a Northwood Rangers midfielder tumbling dramatically to the turf, clutching his ankle. The referee's whistle shrilled a piercing blast that momentarily cut through the crowd's roar, signaling a free kick. The ball, the object of Valor's, and now increasingly Alistair's and Lena's, intense shared suspicion, lay momentarily invitingly motionless on the pristine grass bathed in the bright glare of the stadium floodlights. Valor's alerting behavior intensified dramatically, a low menacing growl rumbling deep in his chest, a sound of canine fury and frustration. "Blitz Zoek Seek," Lena commanded quietly, almost conversationally, using the Dutch term she favored for scent detection work. The Belgian Malinois' reaction was instantaneous, electrifying and utterly unequivocal. His sleek, muscular body stiffened as if jolted by an electric current. His intelligent ears shot forward like twin spears, and his sensitive black nose twitched rapidly, locking onto the exact same ball that had so completely captivated Valor's undivided attention. A soft, high-pitched whine, a sound of pure, focused excitement mixed with anxiety escaped him, a perfect mirror of Valor's earlier, more subdued distress. "Well, that's definitive confirmation, isn't it?" Lena said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, her usual easygoing, almost irreverent demeanor instantly replaced by a sudden, sharp, ice-cold professionalism. Two entirely different dogs, different breeds from different training bloodlines, with different core training methodologies, both independently and without any prompting, alerting aggressively to the exact same target. This isn't a coincidence, Alistair. This is absolutely real. There's something very wrong with that football. Alistair nodded slowly, a grim, unwelcome cocktail of professional vindication and rapidly escalating personal alarm coursing like ice water through his veins. "The maintenance worker," he murmured, his gaze flicking back with renewed intensity to the man in the navy blue overalls, who was now surreptitiously fiddling with something near his ear. He just pressed his hand to his earpiece. Very discreetly, but I saw it. Someone's in his ear feeding him information or instructions. They watched, their senses heightened as the man, after a brief moment of apparently listening intently to his hidden communicator, casually, almost languidly adjusted his position, moving a few feet closer to the designated area where the young ball boys were stationed near the tunnel entrance. "He's waiting for something," Alistair said, his mind racing, sifting through a dozen horrifying possibilities. "He's planning a retrieval or a switch. But what the hell could possibly be in that ball? It supposedly went through the same rigorous security screening as everything else in this stadium. X-rays manual, inspections the lot. How could they miss something two dogs are screaming about?" Alistair took a deep breath, his decision made. He keyed his radio again, this time bypassing the obstructive, short-sighted supervisor Henderson entirely, and routing his urgent call directly to Commander Thorne, the highly respected, operationally astute head of the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Operations Unit. Thorne was a man renowned throughout the force for his sharp intellect, his decisiveness under pressure, and his unwavering trust in the judgment of his experienced frontline officers. "Commander Thorne, this is Police Constable Finch, K9 Unit at the Millennium Dome. Sir, we now have a confirmed independent dual K9 alert from both my dog Valor and Officer Petrova's dog Blitz on the primary game ball currently in play on the pitch. The alert is strong, consistent, and aggressive. I have reason to believe the ball may contain hazardous materials or an explosive device. Requesting immediate permission to implement Protocol 17, Sir, for covert evidence acquisition and substitution." Protocol 17. It was departmental shorthand, a rarely invoked, almost legendary procedure developed years ago for the most sensitive high-stakes situations requiring the clandestine seizure of critical evidence without alerting suspects, triggering a wider panic or compromising ongoing covert operations. The commander's response was impressively immediate, devoid of even a flicker of hesitation, his voice crisp, calm, and authoritative through Alistair's earpiece. "Finch, Petrova, permission for Protocol 17 is granted. Proceed with utmost caution and absolute discretion. I am rerouting specialist tactical assets your way immediately. Maintain a secure communication channel. Keep me appraised of every development. And Finch, trust your dogs." Your halftime approached the giant state-of-the-art scoreboard at either end of the stadium, displaying a tense, frustrating, hard-fought 0-0 scoreline. The atmosphere in the stands was thick with nervous anticipation and partisan angst. The suspicious maintenance worker, whom Alistair and Lena now mentally tagged as their primary active suspect, a quick, discreet facial recognition search initiated by Lena on her encrypted data terminal, had tentatively identified him as one Viktor Sokolov, a Ukrainian national with known, albeit historic, peripheral links to Eastern European organized crime syndicates specializing in smuggling, had made three subtle but nonetheless distinct changes in his position during the course of the first 45 minutes of play. Each almost imperceptible adjustment, Alistair noted, had brought him incrementally, purposefully closer to the official's technical area, and the mouth of the player's tunnel, the precise location where the official game ball would inevitably be taken by the referee during the halftime interval. 4 minutes remaining until the halftime whistle. Alistair murmured, his eyes flicking rapidly, constantly from his wristwatch to the suspect Sokolov, then to Valor, whose unwavering focus had not diminished one iota, then back to the relentless, mesmerizing ebb and flow of play on the pitch. We need to secure that specific ball, that Trojan horse, before he or anyone else he might be working with can make a switch or retrieve whatever's inside it. Whoa. The head referee Grantham, he always takes the official game ball directly to the officials' changing room during the halftime break. Lena noted, her sharp mind already dissecting the logistical challenges and opportunities ahead. It's standard FIFA procedure for security and integrity. That room, I remember from the pre-event briefing, has two primary access points. The main corridor entrance, which will be absolutely teeming with television crews, jostling media, and agitated team staff at halftime, and a much less used, almost hidden service hallway. That hallway connects to the groundskeeping and stadium maintenance facilities. It's a rat run. Right, Alistair decided quickly, his mind clearing as a plan began to form. You and Blitz take up a discreet observation position covering the main corridor entrance. Create a subtle but visible police presence. Observe anyone approaching or leaving the official's room. Valor and I will take the service hallway. If Sokolov makes a move for that ball, he's far more likely to try and use the quieter, less conspicuous route. We need to be there to intercept him. As they finalized their hastily improvised high-stakes plan, the referee Grantham blew the halftime whistle. Its piercing, shrill sound was momentarily, almost completely drowned out by the sudden explosive surge in the crowd's collective roar, as 70,000 frustrated fans shifted their immediate focus, a human tide heading for overpriced refreshments, crowded restrooms, and animated, often heated postmortems of the first half's perceived injustices and missed opportunities. On the pitch, referee Grantham, with an air of weary professionalism, dutifully picked up the official game ball, tucking it securely under his arm as both teams, their faces masks of grim determination and physical exhaustion, trudged heads bowed toward the sanctuary of their respective dressing rooms. Alistair and Valor moved with a fluid, almost spectral grace through the less crowded, echoing service corridor, their police warrant cards and official K9 unit credentials granting them unquestioned access to the normally restricted, unseen underbelly of the vast stadium complex. They positioned themselves strategically in a deep, shadowy alcove, a recess formed by a bank of silent electrical transformers, a position that offered a clear, unobstructed, indiscreet line of sight to the unassuming, gray-painted back entrance of the officials' changing room. Valor, at Alistair's silent hand signal, sat at perfect, unwavering attention, a coiled spring of formidable canine energy, his intense, almost palpable desire to pursue the fading, tantalizing scent of the contaminated ball, warring visibly with years of ingrained iron discipline, and his deep bond with his handler. Alistair could feel the minute tremors of that internal conflict through the taut leash. "Target is mobile." Lena's calm, professional voice crackled softly but clearly in Alistair's covert earpiece. Sokolov, the facial recognition just came back with a priority hit. Alistair, his full name is Viktor Anatolyevich Sokolov, an ex-Spetsnaz operative with extensive EOD experience, flagged on multiple international watch lists for alleged involvement with a particularly ruthless Ukrainian smuggling cartel known as the Odessa Brotherhood. He's heading purposefully towards the service corridors now. He's carrying a nondescript black nylon duffel bag, looks heavy. He's trying to appear casual, but he's wound tighter than a bloody drum. His eyes are everywhere. Less than a minute later, the heavy fire door at the far end of the corridor creaked open, and Viktor Sokolov appeared, his purposeful, almost military strides echoing slightly in the oppressive quiet of the long service hallway. His face, Alistair noted, was a carefully constructed mask of forced, almost bored composure, but Alistair, a keen, experienced observer of human behavior under extreme pressure, noted the subtle, almost invisible tells, a slightly accelerated, shallow rhythm of his breathing, the almost imperceptible glistening sheen of cold perspiration on his upper lip and forehead, the unconscious, repetitive darting glances as he scanned his surroundings, the white-knuckled, bone-deep grip he maintained on the handle of the black duffel bag. Sokolov paused briefly at the main junction, leading directly to the official's room, waited with feigned patience for a chattering, oblivious catering employee, pushing a rattling trolley to disappear slowly around a distant corner, then approached the official's room door. Instead of attempting to enter immediately, however, he positioned himself a few feet away, with his back to the corridor, feigning a detailed, intense inspection of a nearby, clearly non-functional electrical junction box. His eyes, Alistair saw reflected in a small piece of polished metal trim, remained resolutely, intently fixed on the door to the official's room. He was waiting coiled for his opportunity. He was a predator. Inside the surprisingly small utilitarian official's room, referee Grantham and his team of 3 assistants were already deeply engrossed in reviewing a series of contentious incidents from the fiercely contested first half on a tablet computer. The air thick with the smell of liniment and strong coffee, and the sounds of heated technical debate over a particularly controversial, disallowed offside call. The official game ball, the seemingly innocuous object of so much clandestine, life-or-death attention, sat on a small, unassuming formica-topped table near the door, momentarily forgotten, disregarded amidst the urgent, passionate discussion of perceived refereeing errors. Commander Thorne, Alistair spoke quietly, almost breathlessly into his radio, his voice barely above a hushed whisper, acutely conscious of the echoing acoustics of the concrete corridor. Requesting an immediate diversionary tactic at the official's room. Main corridor entrance, need approximately 30 seconds of clear, unimpeded access to the room, sir. 30 seconds is all I ask. Copy that. Finch diversion is incoming. ETA 10 seconds. Stand by. Thorne's voice was a reassuring bedrock of calm authority. Less than a minute later, as promised, a uniformed police sergeant, a plant from Commander Thorne's specialist tactical support team, approached the official's room from the bustling main corridor, knocking with a carefully calibrated show of urgent official importance. Gentlemen, referee Grantham, excuse the unwelcome interruption. Urgent request from the central VAR hub. We need an immediate in-person clarification from you regarding a critical technical issue with the goal line technology feed from the Northwood Rangers and potential system malfunction. They need your eyes on it now. As the officials, grumbling about incompetent technology, but visibly concerned by the implications, dutifully followed, the police sergeant out into the main corridor and towards the distant central video review station. Alistair seized his fleeting golden chance. With Valor providing silent, alert, watchful cover from the alcove, his formidable presence an unspoken, powerful deterrent to any unexpected intrusion or observation. Alistair slipped noiselessly like a wraith from the shadows and into the now empty, unguarded room. He quickly, expertly located the game ball on the table, his heart pounding a steady, heavy rhythm against his ribs, the adrenaline singing in his veins. A rapid, highly focused, tactile examination immediately followed. To the untrained, unsuspecting eye, the ball was utterly, completely indistinguishable from any other official FIFA-approved match ball. Perfectly weighted, its 20 panels flawlessly, almost seamlessly stitched its surface pristine. But when Alistair, his senses hyper-acute, applied firm, targeted searching pressure, with his gloved fingertips to specific, almost random points along the intricate pattern of seams, he detected something infinitesimally, yet undeniably unusual. The ball's normally resilient surface yielded in a way that was subtly, almost imperceptibly different from standard regulation equipment. It felt wrong. Running his sensitive fingers meticulously, painstakingly along each and every seam, his touch as acutely sensitive as a blind man reading Braille, he found it a nearly invisible, almost impossibly disguised hairline modification, a minute, almost microscopic section of a single seam that had been professionally, almost artistically resealed using a specialized heat-based polymer. The craftsmanship was utterly exceptional, terrifyingly good. "Lena, Commander," he whispered urgently into his radio, his voice hushed but vibrating with a mixture of grim triumph and cold apprehension. "I have physical possession of the compromised ball. There is definitely, unequivocally, something concealed inside it. It's been professionally, expertly altered. This is very high-grade, sophisticated work. I can feel an internal mass. Working with a surgeon's precision and a speed born of years of training and intense pressure, using a specialized razor-sharp micro tool from his covert evidence kit, Alistair made a tiny, almost invisible incision along the existing resealed seam. Peering intently through the minute, carefully created aperture, his breath held tight in his chest. He saw it, a tightly wrapped, multi-layered, foil-lined package, no bigger than a large orange, secured firmly with powerful, transparent adhesive strips to the inner surface of the ball's surprisingly thin latex bladder. "We have confirmed contraband." He confirmed, his voice tight with a potent mixture of professional vindication and rising personal alarm. "Appears to be a significant quantity of narcotics, possibly a powdered form. The packaging is designed to be airtight and shielded." He swiftly, silently, and with practiced dexterity switched the compromised deadly ball with an identical, untampered regulation replacement from a bag of official reserve match balls he discreetly procured from the stadium's main kit room stores earlier that morning. A prudent contingency he'd prayed he wouldn't actually need. He slipped out of the official's room as silently, as invisibly as he had entered, melting back into the welcome, comforting shadows of the service corridor mere heartbeats before referee Grantham and his assistants. Their urgent VAR query, apparently resolved, returned to their room oblivious to the life-or-death drama that had just unfolded in their brief absence. Alistair palmed the compromised ball, its weight now feeling sinister to Lena, who had materialized silently at the corridor junction. Blitz at her side, Lena in turn would pass it to a waiting undercover forensics officer. In the stadium's primary heavily secured security command post, a high-tech subterranean nerve center buzzing with a low hum of controlled, focused urgency, forensic specialist Kenji Tanaka, a quiet, unassuming man renowned as a veritable wizard with cutting-edge imaging technology, carefully, almost reverently placed the recovered compromised football into the specially designed cradle of a portable, high-resolution backscatter X-ray scanner. The incredibly detailed, almost three-dimensional image that bloomed with stark clarity onto the large wall-mounted plasma monitor caused an immediate, profound, stunned silence to fall upon the assembled group of senior police officers and stadium security chiefs. The X-ray revealed an astonishingly intricate, almost diabolically clever modification to the ball's interior structure, a sophisticated, custom-designed, and perfectly weighted cavity nestled with almost surgical precision and artistry between the ball's durable synthetic leather exterior and its delicate internal air bladder, high-grade, extremely pure synthetic opioids. Tanaka confirmed, his voice quiet but firm, his fingers flying with practiced expertise across the complex console of the scanner, manipulating the displayed image, zooming in with incredible magnification to enhance specific minute areas of critical interest. Almost certainly a fentanyl derivative, or possibly even carfentanil, judging by the observed density pattern and the sophisticated nature of the internal shielding material. The sheer craftsmanship from a purely technical standpoint is, frankly, quite remarkable. Look closely here at how they've meticulously, ingeniously redistributed the internal weight of the contraband to perfectly maintain the ball's critical aerodynamic flight characteristics: its balance, its spin. This ball would bounce, spin, and travel identically to an unmodified Regulation 1 during active play. Even a world-class professional player handling it for hours wouldn't notice the slightest damn difference by feel or performance. He pointed with a stylus to several almost invisible hair-thin features highlighted on the magnified screen. Do you see these incredibly fine interwoven micro-reinforcement structures? They've incorporated almost invisible strands of woven carbon fiber elements into the casing to maintain the ball's crucial structural integrity during periods of high-impact play, hard tackles, powerful shots, and this almost transparent secondary flexible bladder here, ingeniously layered within the primary bladder, ensures proper, consistent inflation pressure. Despite the significantly reduced internal air volume caused by the presence of the contraband, this wasn't some rushed, amateurish, cobbled-together job. This is professional-grade, bespoke, state-of-the-art concealment technology. We're looking at a ghost. How on earth could they even construct something as sophisticated as this without it being detected during the official manufacturing or quality control processes? Lena Petrova asked, her brow deeply furrowed in concentration as she studied the complex, damning image with a potent mixture of professional admiration for the sheer audacity and growing cold alarm. They would undoubtedly require privileged access to highly specialized proprietary manufacturing equipment. Tanaka explained, his voice tinged with a reluctant, almost grudging respect for the unknown, shadowy creators of this Trojan horse: industrial-grade precision heat welding tools, advanced laser cutting implements, probably even custom-designed, perfectly calibrated injection molds to ensure the critical spherical shape remained absolutely perfect after the illicit modification. We are talking about a clandestine, highly sophisticated criminal operation with access to significant financial resources, advanced specialized technical expertise, and almost certainly critically some form of insider knowledge or complicity within the legitimate sporting goods manufacturing or distribution industry, and the narcotics themselves. What are we looking at in terms of purity and quantity? Commander Thorne inquired, his expression grim, his mind already rapidly calculating the wider, terrifying strategic implications of such a discovery. Synthetic opioids, as I suspected, processed into an exceptionally pure, highly concentrated crystalline or powdered form. Tanaka continued, pointing with his stylus to another highlighted section of the X-ray scan. And look very closely here. The primary packaging material appears to be a sophisticated, multi-layered, vacuum-sealed polymer, quite possibly incorporating an advanced chemically reactive scent-neutralizing agent within its matrix. It's clearly been specially treated at a molecular level to neutralize or effectively mask the specific volatile organic compounds, the unique scent markers, that most conventionally trained narcotics detection canines are conditioned to identify. That's almost certainly why standard security screening protocols, even routine, less intensive sweeps of general cargo, would likely have missed it entirely. Police dogs Valor and Blitz are clearly exceptional, highly specialized assets, perhaps trained on a much wider, more nuanced spectrum of target odors, or possibly in this instance, they keyed into something more subtle, perhaps a minute trace of the industrial adhesives or solvents used in the ball's illicit post-production modification. He performed a quick, complex calculation based on the observed volume and density of the concealed package. I would conservatively estimate a potential raw street value of at least £3 million for this single audacious consignment, probably significantly more, depending on its ultimate purity and how it's cut and distributed at street level. Impeccable, audacious criminal planning. Commander Thorne noted, his voice a low, dangerous growl of controlled fury. Not just any old football, but the official, iconic FA Cup final match ball. An item guaranteed to be prominently featured on national and international television broadcasts for at least 2 hours, handled almost exclusively by trusted match officials and multimillionaire players, an item utterly completely above any normal suspicion, the perfect diabolical Trojan horse delivered brazenly arrogantly onto the world stage, hidden in plain sight. As the two teams refreshed and rebriefed, prepared to emerge from the tunnel for the crucial second half of the final, Alistair felt the familiar cold, coiling tendrils of anticipatory tension that always preceded a major, potentially dangerous tactical police operation tightening their grip in the pit of his stomach. Sokolov, the so-called maintenance worker, he's just a courier, a well-trained mule, albeit a dangerous one. He said, thinking aloud, his intense gaze fixed on the bank of monitors displaying a discreet, covert live feed of Sokolov, who had now, with apparent nonchalance, returned to his feigned duties near the players' tunnel. There has to be a much larger, more sophisticated network behind this audacious operation. A deeply entrenched supply chain, a complex distribution network, probably a team of technical specialists who designed and built that ball. He's not the brains. The coordinated, multifaceted takedown commenced with the silent, almost balletic, practiced precision of a well-oiled, highly trained machine. Numerous plainclothes officers who had been discreetly, seamlessly integrated into the stadium's legitimate stewarding staff, an amorphous crowd hours earlier, moved simultaneously, almost invisibly converging from multiple directions on several pre-identified secondary suspects located throughout the vast, sprawling stadium complex. Their movements were meticulously choreographed, expertly calibrated to cause minimal collateral disruption, to avoid triggering any widespread panic or prematurely alerting their primary or secondary targets. Most of the 70,000 passionate football fans remained blissfully, completely focused on the dramatic resumption of the match, entirely oblivious to the intricate high stakes and potentially deadly police operation unfolding silently and visibly all around them. Alistair and Valor, now integral members of a small, heavily armed, and highly mobile tactical support team, expertly approached Viktor Sokolov from his blind side from behind, using a sudden, deafening, unified roar from the partisan crowd. As Northwood Rangers' star striker narrowly, agonizingly missed a golden goal-scoring opportunity, as perfect, overwhelming auditory cover for their final decisive approach. Viktor Anatolievich Sokolov, Alistair said quietly, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable steely edge of absolute authority, as he stepped swiftly, purposefully, directly beside the suddenly startled, visibly tensing man. Metropolitan Police, I need you to place your hands slowly and deliberately on top of your head where I can clearly see them. Do it now without any sudden movements. Sokolov froze for a single heart-stopping fraction of a second, his eyes suddenly wide with dawning animalistic panic darting frantically from Alistair's determined, unyielding face to Valor's equally resolute, formidable canine presence, then to the other grim-faced armed tactical officers now materializing as if from thin air from the surrounding crowd, effectively completely boxing him in. He was a skilled operative. He was rapidly, coldly calculating his rapidly diminishing, almost non-existent options. I don't know what you are talking about. Sokolov muttered, his voice hoarse, his Ukrainian accent suddenly more pronounced, his body shifting subtly, almost imperceptibly as if preparing to bolt. Angling fractionally towards the perceived sanctuary of the nearby service tunnel exit. I work here. I am just doing my assigned job. This is a mistake. We've already successfully secured both of your packages, Victor, Alistair replied calmly, his gaze unwavering, his voice devoid of emotion. The primary one, the one ingeniously concealed inside the match ball, and the secondary one, the contents of your black duffel bag. The entire operation, your entire plan is comprehensively done. It's over. Nom. The carefully chosen, deliberately specific words, the pointed, informed mention of both packages had the precise, devastating effect Alistair had intended. A visible, uncontrollable tremor of profound shock, of dawning, horrified realization that their meticulously planned, audacious operation had been so comprehensively, so utterly compromised, registered starkly on Sokolov's previously impassive face. They hadn't just discovered the ball. They somehow knew about his intended switch, his backup plan, the contents of his bag. For a single heart-stopping, almost unbearable moment, the entire volatile situation teetered precariously on a razor's edge, a terrifying precipice balanced delicately between immediate resigned surrender and a final desperate violent resistance. Then Sokolov, ex-Spetsnaz, training kicking in, made his desperate instinctive decision. With a sudden, explosive, almost inhuman burst of movement, he violently shoved a nearby heavy-wheeled catering trolley laden with discarded plastic food containers and half-empty drink bottles directly forcefully into Alistair's path, and bolted sprinting with surprising, almost deer-like speed and agility towards the relative, albeit temporary, sanctuary of the dark, echoing service tunnel. Suspect fleeing, actively resisting East Service Tunnel, heading towards Sector Delta. K9 in active pursuit. Alistair barked urgently into his radio, already vaulting with athletic grace over the upended rolling trolley. Valor, a silent black and tan streak of focused canine fury, already leading the way, his powerful paws scrabbling for purchase on the slick concrete floor. The bewildering network of service tunnels beneath the vast, futuristic Millennium Dome formed a confusing, dimly lit, almost subterranean labyrinth of endlessly intersecting, identical-looking corridors, exposed utility pipes, and humming electrical conduits. Sokolov, as a supposed maintenance worker, might possess a working, rudimentary knowledge of the basic layout, but he couldn't possibly outpace or outwit a highly trained, physically superior police dog operating at peak physiological and psychological adrenaline. Valor moved with a fluid, ground-eating, almost poetic speed, his powerful paws barely seeming to touch the dusty concrete floor. He turned sharp, unexpected corners with unerring, instinctive precision. His every muscle, every sinew, every fiber of his being dedicated solely, utterly, to the chase, driving relentlessly forward with a singular, unwavering, almost terrifying focus. He was a hunting machine. "I've got the South Fire exit at Sector Delta covered with 2 armed response units." Lena's calm, reassuring voice came through Alistair's earpiece, a welcome anchor of professional composure amidst the escalating chaos and his own ragged breathing. "He's not getting out that way, Alistair. We're systematically boxing him in. He's running out of road." Sokolov, his lungs now burning his face, a mask of terror and desperation, crashed violently, recklessly through a set of heavy-duty swinging double doors and into a cavernous, cluttered equipment storage room. With desperate, flailing strength, he began to send towering stacks of folded plastic chairs and rickety metal shelving units laden with old paint cans and forgotten cleaning supplies, cascading noisily to the concrete floor in a frantic, last-ditch attempt to impede or slow down his relentless pursuers. The sudden, deafening cacophony of falling, smashing metal and splintering, cracking plastic created a chaotic, almost impassable, treacherous obstacle course. But Valor's years of rigorous, intensive agility, training his unwavering laser-like focus on his designated quarry, his innate courage prevailed. The magnificent shepherd launched himself with breathtaking power and grace over a fallen stack of heavy wooden signage, ducked with incredible, almost unbelievable agility beneath a dangerously hanging, sparking tangle of severed electrical conduit, and maintained his relentless, determined pursuit with a focus that was almost terrifying in its sheer primal intensity. Alistair followed closely, his own years of intensive physical conditioning and specialized urban pursuit training, allowing him to somehow navigate the treacherous, shifting mayhem while desperately trying to keep his courageous canine partner in clear sight. His lungs burned with the effort, his heart hammered a frantic tattoo against his ribs. The suspect Sokolov reached a critical T-junction of narrow, poorly lit corridors, hesitating for a single fatal, indecisive fraction of a second, looking desperately left and right, his mounting panic now clearly visibly evident. That momentary, understandable indecision was all the advantage Valor needed. The dog, sensing his quarry's wavering resolve, closed the remaining distance from 10 yards to less than 2 in a silent, electrifying blur of focused motion. Sensing the powerful canine closing inexorably in on him, his hot breath now almost palpable on his heels, Sokolov's carefully cultivated professional desperation became visibly, starkly palpable. He blindly, frantically snatched a heavy, rusty metal stanchion pole from a nearby discarded maintenance rack and whirled around with surprising speed, his face contorted in a snarl of cornered animal fury, intending to swing it viciously, lethally at the rapidly approaching dog. Metropolitan Police armed officers, "Stop now or I'll order the dog to engage." Alistair shouted the formal, legally required warning, a conditioned automatic reflex even in the red mist and adrenaline-fueled heat of a life-or-death pursuit. Sokolov, however, was beyond reason, beyond surrender. He glanced back wildly, his face a mask of contorted, desperate panic and savage defiance, as he fully realized the utter, complete futility of attempting to outrun or outfight his four-legged, highly trained pursuer. As he raised the heavy metal pipe high above his head, preparing to bring it crashing down with potentially lethal force onto Valor's exposed skull, Alistair issued a single, sharp, urgent command. "Valor, fast, take him!" The Alsatian, responding with the instantaneous, unthinking obedience of his rigorous training, launched himself forward like a furry-guided missile. His trajectory was calculated with breathtaking, almost unbelievable precision, his primary target. Sokolov's weapon-wielding arm, his powerful, bone-crushing jaws closed with controlled, immense, incapacitating pressure around the suspect's surprisingly thick forearm, a specialized grip designed to immediately immobilize, to instantly neutralize the immediate threat without necessarily causing life-threatening, exsanguinating injury. The heavy metal pipe clattered uselessly, harmlessly to the dusty concrete floor, as Sokolov cried out a choked, involuntary gasp of pure, unadulterated surprise, excruciating pain, and dawning, abject terror. The sharp metallic clang echoed eerily, unnervingly through the claustrophobic, shadowy confines of the long service corridor. Police armed officers on the ground, now get on the bloody ground. Hands behind your head, fingers interlaced, Alistair ordered his service-issue semi-automatic pistol, now drawn, expertly aimed, and unwavering as he closed the remaining distance. His movements swift, economical, and purposeful. Valor, despite the adrenaline coursing through his own powerful body, maintained his firm, disciplined hold on Sokolov's arm, a low, menacing, guttural growl rumbling deep in his chest. The culmination of years of intensive, repetitive, bite and hold training, clearly evident in his unwavering, controlled restraint. His absolute, unwavering focus on his handler's next command. With his one free, uninjured hand, Sokolov, his face now ashen, his eyes darting wildly, fumbled desperately, frantically, in the deep pocket of his navy blue overalls. Alistair tensed his finger, tightening instinctively on the cool metal of the trigger, fully preparing himself for the horrifying possibility of another hidden weapon. A concealed knife, a small backup pistol. But instead of a gun or a knife, the now whimpering, defeated suspect pulled out a small, surprisingly innocuous-looking, almost toy-like, black plastic remote control device. A single prominent, ominous red button was clearly visible on its smooth surface. "Call off your bloody dog, you bastard, or I trigger the third package." Sokolov threatened, his voice now raspy, weak, his eyes wide and unfocused, with a cornered, desperate animal's last-ditch terror. His trembling thumb hovered precariously, dangerously over the small red button. "You think you found everything. You think you're so bloody clever, you English pigs. There's enough pure powdered fentanyl in the third one, strategically, expertly placed directly in the main VIP ventilation intake duct, to kill half your bloody government officials and half the bloody royal box if it disperses properly. One tiny push of this button and they all just go to sleep permanently. A painless, quiet death for your masters. Valor aus release now, Alistair commanded sharply, his voice cutting through Sokolov's hysterical threats. The shepherd, with the instantaneous, unhesitating obedience that defined their partnership, immediately cleanly obeyed. He released his crushing grip on Sokolov's arm and backed up 2 precise, disciplined paces, but remained resolutely, immovably positioned directly between the now cowering, defeated Sokolov and any potential, however unlikely, escape route. His intense, intelligent gaze remained locked, unblinking on the suspect. Sokolov's bloodied thumb twitched, moving fractionally, terrifyingly closer to the small red button. In that single heart-stopping, almost frozen split second, 1,000 complex calculations, a dozen potential scenarios raced through Alistair's hyper-alert mind. He had to make a critical, instantaneous, potentially life-or-death decision: shoot Sokolov and risk the man's inevitable death spasm, his involuntary muscle contractions triggering the deadly device as he fell, or place his absolute, unwavering, almost spiritual trust in Valor's advanced, specialized training, his unique, almost supernatural capabilities for a more precise, less universally lethal intervention. The choice in the end was no choice at all. Valor Nim, take it. Sukrum, the command, the specialized instruction for a targeted, non-aggressive object seizure, was barely out of Alistair's mouth, a mere whisper in the tense, charged air, before the magnificent Alsatian launched himself forward again. This time it was with an explosive, almost unbelievable burst of focused lightning speed. His target, not the man himself, but the small, deadly device held precariously in his trembling hand. Valor's powerful jaws closed with almost surgical, delicate precision around Sokolov's exposed hand and wrist, applying just enough carefully calibrated, expertly modulated pressure to force the man's spasming fingers to spring open to release their desperate grip without breaking bone, without causing further significant injury. The small black remote device clattered harmlessly, almost anticlimactically, to the grimy concrete floor. Alistair moved in instantly, his heavy boot coming down hard, decisively, on the potentially deadly device, kicking it, skidding, spinning across the corridor well away from the now sobbing, completely defeated suspect, while simultaneously expertly forcing the unresisting Sokolov onto his stomach and efficiently applying a set of rigid plastic restraints. Suspect secured and in custody. He reported into his radio, his voice strained, breathless but fundamentally steady. Be advised, however, suspect made credible claims of a third hazardous materials package, possibly a sophisticated fentanyl dispersal device, allegedly located somewhere in or near the main VIP section ventilation system. Repeat, potential significant airborne fentanyl threat to the primary VIP area. Immediate hazmat and EOD response required. As numerous additional heavily armed gas mask tactical officers arrived on the scene to take the now utterly broken, whimpering Viktor Sokolov into secure custody and to initiate immediate emergency hazmat and explosive ordnance disposal protocols. Throughout the stadium's upper levels, it rapidly, blessedly became clear that Sokolov's desperate, terrifying threat about a mythical third package, the deadly fentanyl dispersal device, had indeed been an elaborate, horrifying, but ultimately desperate bluff. A last-ditch, calculated, terrifying attempt to create some form of leverage to perhaps buy himself a few precious seconds, a fleeting chance of escape during his otherwise inevitable capture. No such device, Alistair was profoundly relieved to learn some 20 minutes later, was found despite an exhaustive, painstaking, and nerve-wrackingly tense search of every ventilation shaft and corporate box in the stadium. The stadium's primary security command center, already a tightly wound hive of intense operational activity, now buzzed with an almost electric, palpable intensity as the full, audacious, almost unbelievable scope of the sophisticated international smuggling operation became horrifyingly, undeniably clear. Numerous additional suspects, their identities and precise locations, rapidly, expertly gleaned from gigabytes of encrypted data extracted from Sokolov's captured burner phones, and the surprising contents of his innocuous-looking black duffel bag, which contained not another device but sophisticated counter-surveillance equipment and a set of forged identity documents, had been quietly, efficiently identified and apprehended by highly skilled plainclothes surveillance units, who had been strategically positioned throughout the stadium and in its immediate crowded vicinity for hours. On the vast panoramic array of high-definition monitors displaying crystal-clear feeds from hundreds of strategically placed CCTV cameras, the FA Cup final, Alistair noted, with a strange sense of surreal detachment, continued its dramatic, engrossing course. Northwood Rangers, his boyhood team, were now leading by a comfortable, almost unassailable 3 goals to 1 with less than 15 minutes of normal playing time remaining on the clock. The 70,000-strong crowd, utterly oblivious to the life-and-death drama that had been playing out just meters beneath their feet, was in a state of near-delirious partisan raptures. We currently have 6 primary suspects securely in custody. Commander Thorne summarized concisely for the assembled, visibly relieved team leaders, his voice grim, but laced with a deep, undeniable current of professional satisfaction. 2 primary packages of contraband containing an estimated combined total of approximately 5 kilograms of exceptionally pure, weapons-grade synthetic opioids have been successfully secured and are en route to the forensic labs. Preliminary street value assessment based on current market rates is just over £4 million sterling. This represents a very significant disruptive blow to a major previously unidentified international narcotics trafficking route. NAM Chief Inspector Davies, who had been anxiously remotely observing the complex, rapidly unfolding tactical operation from the command center, with a potent mixture of profound professional concern and visibly growing personal admiration for the courage and skill of his frontline officers, weighed the latest intelligence reports carefully, his gaze sweeping slowly, thoughtfully across the tired but triumphant faces of his command team. He then, after a moment of silent contemplation, made his decisive, pragmatic decision. The match continues to its natural conclusion. Maintain the current significantly elevated security presence throughout the stadium and its environs, but ensure that all ongoing police operations remain as discreet and low profile as humanly possible. I want you to coordinate closely with senior stadium management to implement our standard pre-agreed crowd dispersal and major incident management measures for a normal, orderly, post-game exit. We will create no cause for undue public alarm or media speculation tonight. This operation remains classified. As Alistair, his adrenaline finally beginning to subside, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness, returned to his originally designated patrol post near the pitch, with Valor walking calmly, proudly at his side. The entire stadium erupted in a final, joyous, almost cathartic, deafening, cacophonous cheer. Northwood Rangers, against all pre-match predictions, had scored a spectacular 4th goal in the dying minutes of the game, decisively, indisputably sealing their historic FA Cup championship victory. The ensuing ecstatic, almost uncontrollable on-pitch celebrations, the slightly chaotic but ultimately jubilant trophy presentation ceremony, and the triumphant, almost primal roars of the 70,000 ecstatic, emotionally drained fans provided the perfect, almost surreal, chaotic cover for the final, delicate and painstaking phase of the complex police operation. During this period, the remaining lower-level peripheral suspects, their identities and probable locations meticulously pieced together through rapidly evolving digital forensics and swiftly developing human intelligence, were systematically, almost invisibly identified, isolated, and discreetly apprehended by specialist units throughout the vast, sprawling venue and its surrounding crowded transport hubs over the next 2 hours. The following morning, the weak pale gray London light filtering reluctantly, almost apologetically, through the grimy, rain-streaked windows of the aging inner-city precinct station. Alistair, feeling as though he hadn't slept in a week, arrived for his scheduled critical incident debrief. He found Chief Inspector Davies already waiting for him in the main harshly lit briefing room, flanked by a grim-faced Commander Thorne and several other stern-faced, soberly dressed individuals in expensive civilian attire, whom Alistair didn't immediately recognize, but whose quiet air of authority and piercing gazes marked them instantly as senior government or security agency officials. Valor, ever attuned to his handler, padded silently with his usual calm dignity. Beside him, his demeanor outwardly relaxed but inwardly alert, sensing the subtle but unmistakable shift in Alistair's body language, the air of quiet, serious importance that permeated the otherwise mundane room. Police Constable Finch, Chief Inspector Davies, greeted him, his voice carrying an unusual, almost unprecedented degree of formality and respect. "Thank you for attending at such short notice. These gentlemen, I should inform you, are senior representatives from the National Crime Agency and the Home Office's Joint Terrorism Analysis Center. They would very much like to hear about yesterday's complex operation and your critical role within it, directly from you, if you would be so kind." The next intensive, grueling hour was spent in a meticulous, exhaustive, almost minute-by-minute recounting of the entire extraordinary sequence of events, from Valor's initial, almost imperceptible yet stubbornly persistent alert at the side of the crowded pitch to the tense, nerve-wracking, high-stakes pursuit through the stadium's labyrinthine underbelly, and culminating in the eventual dramatic and potentially lethal takedown of the highly dangerous Viktor Sokolov. The senior federal agents and government security officials listened with rapt, unbroken attention, their expressions largely unreadable, their bodies unnaturally still, occasionally interjecting with precise, insightful, almost clinically detached questions about the most specific, granular details of the sophisticated smuggling methodology, Valor's unique training and alert indicators, Alistair's complex decision-making process under conditions of extreme, life-threatening pressure, and the psychological makeup of the apprehended suspect. The sheer breathtaking technical sophistication of the concealment method itself is what naturally concerns us most profoundly at this juncture, explained a tall, ascetic-looking senior agent from the National Crime Agency, a man named Ramirez, his voice quiet but carrying an unmistakable undercurrent of deep professional unease. The football, as you know, was professionally, almost artistically modified to an unprecedented standard. The false resealed seam was, for all practical purposes, virtually undetectable, even under conditions of close expert scrutiny, without prior specific intelligence or an exceptional canine asset. The internal bladder was ingeniously, almost diabolically redesigned to accommodate the significant contraband package, while simultaneously critically maintaining perfect inflation pressure, precise weight distribution, and absolutely authentic aerodynamic flight characteristics. This, I regret to inform you, represents an entirely new and deeply alarming level of criminal audacity, innovation, and technical capability on the part of these international syndicates. The actionable intelligence gathered from Sokolov and the other 5 primary suspects apprehended yesterday has already proven to be exceptionally valuable, even game-changing. Commander Thorne announced a rare note of grim, hard-won satisfaction, discernible in his usually measured voice. Sokolov, having been presented with the overwhelming, irrefutable evidence against him and facing a battery of extremely serious charges, including conspiracy to import Class A narcotics with intent to supply and multiple counts of recklessly endangering public safety, began to cooperate fully with our investigators late last night. He has provided significant intelligence regarding his handlers and the wider network. As a direct result, we are currently coordinating closely with specialist law enforcement agencies in at least 3 other European Union countries for a series of simultaneous targeted raids on suspected manufacturing and distribution hubs, scheduled to take place under conditions of utmost secrecy later today. We are cautiously optimistic that we have successfully identified and are now in a position to neutralize the primary manufacturing and international distribution hub of this particularly dangerous and innovative criminal enterprise. After the intensive, lengthy debriefing, a carefully managed, somewhat sanitized official press conference was hastily convened in front of the imposing Victorian facade of New Scotland Yard. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner himself, flanked by a visibly proud Chief Inspector Davies and a more reserved Commander Thorne, outlined the bare bones of the successful, complex counter-narcotics operation in meticulously chosen, carefully worded, almost bland terms. He repeatedly emphasized the paramount importance of public safety, the success of interagency cooperation, and the exceptional bravery of his officers, while deliberately skillfully minimizing any specific operational details or sensitive intelligence that might inadvertently compromise the ongoing, now highly active international investigations. And now, the commissioner concluded, his voice resonating with carefully calibrated official pride and public reassurance. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly introduce and personally commend the highly dedicated, exceptionally skilled, and remarkably courageous team responsible for the initial critical detection that ultimately made this entire, overwhelmingly successful police operation possible. Police Constable Alistair Finch and his quite extraordinary K9 partner, Police Dog Valor. A sudden blinding flurry of camera flashes erupted from the assembled media scrum, the relentless clicking of shutters sounding like a swarm of angry insects. A seasoned, notoriously tenacious investigative reporter from The Times, a woman known throughout Fleet Street for her incisive, often uncomfortable questions, skillfully cut straight to the undeniable heart of the matter. Officer Finch, it is our understanding from reliable sources that your K9 partner Valor alerted to something highly suspicious, that all standard multi-layered security screening protocols, including it is rumored other, less specialized K9 units present at the stadium, initially apparently completely missed. What precisely was it, officer, that made you trust your partner's unconfirmed and initially unsupported response so implicitly, so absolutely enough to pursue it vigorously, even when, as we also understand, senior supervising officers on site initially dismissed your legitimate concerns as a probable overreaction or a false alarm? Alistair paused the forest of microphones, amplifying the sudden expectant silence. He chose his words with deliberate, thoughtful care, his gaze steady, his voice clear and strong, meeting the reporter's challenging stare directly. In our 4 intensive years of daily operational partnership, Police Dog Valor has never, not on a single occasion, been proven wrong when he gives a clear, unambiguous, positive alert to a suspicious or hazardous substance or item. Never. Our unique partnership, like all genuinely successful and effective K9 partnerships, is built upon an unbreakable, almost telepathic foundation of profound mutual trust, intuitive understanding, and countless hours of shared experience. When he communicates to me through the complex language of his specialized training, his unique behavioral cues, and his incredible God-given instincts that something is fundamentally dangerously wrong with a situation, I believe him implicitly. I trust his nose and his judgment absolutely, even when my own human senses, or indeed conventional wisdom and visible evidence, might strongly suggest otherwise. Yesterday at the Cup final, he told me in no uncertain terms that there was a serious problem with that football, and I listened to him. It's as simple and as profound as that. Well, later that same afternoon, as the long, emotionally draining, and adrenaline-saturated shift was finally mercifully drawing to its weary close, Supervisor Henderson, looking somewhat chastened, decidedly uncomfortable, and visibly humbled, approached Alistair's cluttered desk in the noisy, organized chaos of the squad room. Officer Finch, Henderson began his usual bombastic bluster, noticeably, almost shockingly absent, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. Alistair, I feel I owe you a sincere, unreserved apology. A profound one, in fact. When you first reported Police Dog Valor's alert at the stadium yesterday, I was far too quick, far too arrogant to dismiss it out of hand. I confess I was overly focused on the rigid schedule, the potential for negative media attention, the pressure from above. I allowed those external irrelevant pressures to dangerously cloud my professional judgment. If I had only listened properly to your detailed assessment from the outset, if I had taken your genuine experience-based concerns more seriously from the very beginning, we might well have resolved the entire critical situation even sooner, perhaps with significantly less inherent risk to yourself, Officer Petrova, and the public. He paused, then extended a hesitant, slightly trembling hand across the desk. You were right, Finch. Your dog was unequivocally right. You both did exceptionally fine police work yesterday. Truly exceptional. I was wrong, and I am sorry. Alistair, surprised by the sincerity and humility in Henderson's apology, shook the offered hand firmly, a silent gesture of professional reconciliation and mutual respect. In the relative welcome anonymity and quiet solitude of the deserted precinct car park, bathed in the fading, melancholic light of the late autumn afternoon, with no official audience present, no intrusive cameras flashing, no demanding superiors offering stilted congratulations, Alistair finally allowed himself a quiet, intensely private, profoundly moving moment of unrestrained pride and deep, heartfelt affection. He knelt slowly, wearily beside his loyal, incredible partner, ruffling the thick, soft, familiar fur around Valor's noble neck, offering the genuine, uncomplicated, unconditional affection that remained a private, almost sacred space between them, a bond entirely separate from yet deeply intertwined with their demanding, often dangerous working relationship. You were truly, utterly amazing yesterday, old friend, he told Valor quietly, his voice thick with a potent cocktail of relief, gratitude, and overwhelming emotion. Absolutely bloody amazing. I know you don't care a single jot about press conferences or official commendations or those fancy new personalized tactical vests they're probably already designing for you with your name embroidered on them in gold thread. You were just doing your job, weren't you, my boy? Just doing what you do best, what you were born and bred to do. Protecting people. Wakunana Valor's magnificent plumed tail gave a slight contented thump against the cool, damp tarmac of the car park, his intelligent, soulful amber eyes meeting Alistair's with that clear, unwavering, almost telepathic connection, that deep, unspoken understanding that had characterized their extraordinary, life-affirming partnership. From the very first fateful day in that dusty Keston training hall, as they drove slowly away from the familiar precinct, the last vestiges of the setting sun painting the iconic sprawling London skyline in breathtaking, dramatic hues of bruised purple blood, orange, and fiery crimson, Alistair found himself reflecting deeply on the truly extraordinary, almost unbelievable chain of events that had so unexpectedly, so dramatically transformed a relatively routine, albeit high-profile stadium security assignment into one of the most significant, complex, and high-stakes counter-narcotics operations of their entire shared distinguished career. The audacious, diabolically clever international smuggling attempt, had it succeeded as planned, would have undoubtedly established a dangerous, innovative, and potentially untraceable new pipeline for deadly addictive synthetic drugs directly into vulnerable communities, not just in the United Kingdom, but almost certainly across the entirety of mainland Europe. The ultimate devastating human cost of such an operation, the countless lives shattered, the families irrevocably devastated, the communities torn apart, would have been almost unimaginable, truly immeasurable. All of it prevented, all of it narrowly, miraculously averted. Because one incredibly dedicated, exceptionally gifted, and astonishingly courageous police dog, blessed with a preternatural nose for trouble, and an unbreakable, almost mystical bond with his human handler, simply, stubbornly, magnificently, wouldn't stop barking at a seemingly innocuous, ordinary, everyday soccer ball